Have you ever stopped to wonder if your mind can actually heal your body? We tend to dismiss the placebo effect as just being all in your head. But what if that's exactly where its real power comes from? We're about to dig into how belief itself can trigger real, measurable biological changes in your body. So let's just start with a number that pretty much stopped researchers in their tracks: 76%. In the big COVID-19 vaccine trials, that's the percentage of side effects, we're talking headaches, fatigue, that kind of thing, that were also reported by the people who got a placebo. Just think about that for a second. And that really gets to the heart of the mystery, doesn't it? How can something with no active ingredients, a sugar pill, a saline shot, produce such real effects, both good and bad? It sounds impossible, but the answer is actually locked away inside our own brains. So let's dive in and see what's going on. Okay, first things first. We need to clear up a really common misunderstanding. The word placebo gets thrown around a lot, but in science, you gotta be precise. What most of us think of as the placebo effect is actually something much, much bigger. Okay, so look here on the left. You've got the placebo response. Now, this is any improvement at all that happens after someone gets a placebo. It could be that their body was just healing on its own, for example. But over here on the right, you have the placebo effect. And this is the specific, measurable change that happens only because a person believes they're getting a real treatment. This isn't just luck, it's a direct result of pure expectation. So let's just lock in that definition. The placebo effect is a real beneficial health outcome that comes from one thing: anticipating that a treatment is going to help. And we're not just talking about feeling better. This can cause objective changes that a doctor can actually measure, like your blood pressure literally dropping. So, if this effect is real, where is it coming from? Well, the answer isn't some kind of magic, it's chemistry. It turns out your brain has its own little built-in pharmacy, and it's fully capable of whipping up some powerful chemicals that can totally change how you feel. Okay, so check this out. When you expect something good to happen, like you think a pill is going to get rid of your headache, your brain starts releasing dopamine. Yep, that's the same chemical that's all about reward and motivation. They've even done studies on Parkinson's patients that show the mere expectation of getting better from a placebo triggers this massive flood of dopamine in the brain. And it gets even wilder. Your brain can also release its own natural painkillers called endogenous opioids. I mean, these things are chemically similar to drugs like morphine. So when you truly believe a treatment is going to stop your pain, your brain can literally start making its own painkillers, right on demand. And the amazing part is, we know this is really happening because we can see it on brain scans. Scientists have pinpointed the exact areas that light up. They see activity in the reward centers, that's the dopamine, and in the parts that handle pain and emotion, that's your natural opioids getting to work. So this isn't just some vague feeling. It's a physical, observable event happening right inside your skull. But here's the twist in the story. If the power of positive thinking can heal, what do you think the power of negative thinking can do? Well, this is where we meet the placebo's evil twin, the nocebo effect. Right, so the nocebo effect is what happens when you expect a bad outcome. If your doctor warns you that a shot is going to hurt, it probably will hurt more. If you read a long list of potential side effects, you're way more likely to actually feel them, even if you're just taking a harmless sugar pill. And this brings us right back to those vaccine trials. Look at this chart. About 2/3 of the people who got the real vaccine reported a sore arm or something similar. Okay, that makes sense. But now look at the placebo group. A full 16% of people who got nothing more than a saltwater injection also reported pain, redness, or swelling. Their negative expectations created a real physical sensation. And it makes sense, right? Just like the placebo effect turns on the brain's pharmacy, the nocebo effect kind of does the opposite. Brain imaging shows that expecting something bad can actually shut down the release of dopamine and those natural opioids, basically making it harder for your body to feel good and manage pain. So all this fascinating science leads to a huge real-world problem for doctors. If belief is this powerful, how are they supposed to use it? It puts them on this incredibly tricky ethical tightrope. The American Medical Association, the AMA, has a very clear stance on this. At the end of the day, the relationship between a doctor and a patient has to be built on trust. And using a placebo deceptively, telling a patient a vitamin shot is a powerful energy booster, well, that just shatters the trust. The whole conflict really boils down to two core principles of medical ethics. On one hand, you have beneficence. That's the duty to do good for your patient. A doctor wants to make you feel better. But on the other hand, you have autonomy, and that's the patient's right to know what's being done to their body and why. Deception, even with good intentions, completely violates that right. So, what's the final verdict from the medical community? Well, the guidelines are really strict. A doctor just can't lie to you. They can't give you a placebo and pretend it's an active drug. The only ethical way to use a placebo is with the patient's full informed consent, like in a clinical trial where everybody knows they might be getting one. It all comes down to this: trust and honesty are totally non-negotiable. This whole thing forces us to ask an even bigger question. If the placebo effect is so tangled up with every treatment we give, how do we even know if our drugs actually work? This really complicates the entire foundation of medical research. See, for decades, the gold standard for testing drugs, the randomized controlled trial, or RCT, has been built on a pretty simple assumption. The total benefit you get is just the drug's chemical effect plus the placebo effect from your belief. But what if that simple math is just wrong? To figure this out, researchers came up with this really clever method called the balanced placebo design. Instead of just 2 groups, they use 4. They mix and match what people actually get, a drug or a placebo, with what they're told they're getting. And by doing this, scientists can finally pull apart the pure drug effect from the pure belief effect and see how they really interact. And what they found is just stunning. The total benefit isn't just drug plus belief. They don't just add up. It's way more complex. In fact, a lot of the time, the combined effect is actually less than the 2 separate effects added together. And here's the huge takeaway. This means our standard clinical trials might actually be underestimating the true power of many of our medicines. And that leaves us with this really profound final thought. We've seen that the placebo effect isn't just some little psychological quirk. It's a powerful biological process driven by real chemicals in our brain. So, if our beliefs can physically change our biology, what does that mean for the future of medicine, for how we talk to patients, and for how we unlock the full potential of that pharmacy we all have inside our heads? The line between mind and body might just be a lot blurrier than we ever thought.